The crash. Where am I? Oh, here I am. That was one nasty crash. I'll probably have bruises to show for it for several weeks. But they're nothing compared to the bruises incurred from last year's crash. Let me go back to the beginning. Okay, a little after that. It was 1928 and the day of my 12th birthday. My parents wanted to give me a little capital to start my own business. So they started me out with $10. And I was able to set up shop at the end of the driveway. For a while there, my name was synonymous with lemonade. In a year's time, I had saved $100, a small fortune. Of course, my parents wanted me to invest my earnings. If there was anything that the boom of the 1920s had taught us, it was that stocks were a sure thing. Dad hooked me up with his broker, who allowed me to borrow 10 times as much money as equity and to buy stocks with it at some pretty fantabulous rates. So I borrowed $1,000 and bought $1,100 worth of stock in an oil company. At $1 a share, I was able to buy 1,100 shares. Because of all the consumer optimism at the time, everyone was pouring money into the stock market, and my oil company was raking it in. Before long, my stock had risen to $3 a share, and I was laughing all the way to the bank. Taking into consideration my original investment, I was suddenly worth $2,000, give or take, and I could have had all that dinero if I had sold right then. Oh, if only someone had visited me from the distant future to steer me in the right direction. Okay, so my parents suggested I sell, but they're my parents. They also think I should eat all my Brussels sprouts too. I have to take everything they say with a grain of salt. Instead, I listened to this Wall Street analyst who said my stock was going to $10 a share and I'd be crazy to sell. I didn't want to be called crazy, so I didn't sell. Sure enough, the stock tanked, as did the rest of the market. By the time my oil company had dropped back down to its original price of $1 a share, I was broke. The taxes and interest had cleaned me out. I didn't even have my original $100 anymore, and it happened so fast. At the end of the day, my stock had dropped even further and was now at 70 cents a share. I was bankrupt, and the brokerage was left having to pay what I couldn't. They were suddenly several $100 in the hole. Sadly, my story isn't a unique one. Last year's crash wiped out nearly everyone who had put a good chunk of their savings into the stock market. But at least I'm a kid and I've got my whole life to learn from my past mistakes and hopefully carve out a good life for myself. The same can't be said for a lot of grown-ups. When the bottom dropped out of the economy, it hurt everyone pretty badly. Demand for goods plummeted because those who had lost a bundle in the stock market suddenly had holes in their pockets. And good luck financing new investments through the sale of stock. Nobody was buying stocks any longer. They weren't falling for that again. But in the meantime, millions had lost their jobs, their homes, and had to start standing in bread lines and visiting soup kitchens just to keep some meat on their quickly deteriorating bones. Some even gave up all hope and jumped out of 20-story windows. Believe it or not, those guys were in even worse shape than my bike. Speaking of which, I should probably get this guy down to the scrap metal yard so I can sell it for parts. Maybe I can scrounge together enough coins to buy a few slices of bread for dinner. But, enjoy your Chinese takeout or whatever you're having tonight.